Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Internet Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. A very good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 23rd of June, 2013. Good evening. Now, what we're going to do is we have a couple of new jingles that we're going to be playing tonight. We're just kind of playing around at the moment. But before we go over to communications, we just say that the guest that we're going to have on tonight is going to be Lou Collins from UK Column. And also at 8 o'clock we're going to be bringing on Tony Farrell. Tony's going to be talking about the Horizon project that we mentioned last week on the show. So, Steve, over to you. Communication channels, please.
Okay, Mary, what's the communication channels?
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Thanks very much, Mary. If you're ringing in from outside the Republic of Ireland, don't forget 00353 in front of that. Any other questions there, Mary?
Hey guys, what's the weather?
Yeah, it's raining. Well, it was raining. The sun is shining now, but it was raining. Yeah, there's a joke in there somewhere, but how can you tell when it's summer when it's summertime in Ireland?
Go on.
I don't know. I said there is
a
a joke.
There is a joke in there.
It's in the making.
We'll work on it for next week. Yeah. Okie dokie. Right, okay. Just a couple of things we're going to go through as usual before we get our guest on. We had the... Sorry, Steve.
Yes. The levels are looking a little bit on the low side.
Are they?
Yes.
1, 2. Wow.
1, 2.
Let's
1, 2.
1, 2. Let's bring up them levels. How's that now? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Much better.
That's a bit better. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem at all. The levels are back up. That's good. Okay, now, last Monday we had our seminar, our first OYM seminar regarding the dangers of wireless technology. And it went down, great success. Thanks for everybody that turned up. And big thank you to Walter Graham for coming down and actually doing the actual seminar and doing the talk. And there's a Q&A at the end, a good few questions there from people coming up wanting to know a bit more. And so we're going to be looking at, and thanks to people for donations to OYM as well, because it's only for your donations that we actually managed to organise the seminar and to cover the cost to do it. And obviously we'd like to do a lot more seminars. So it'd be fantastic, if, as I say, if you have a few euro, 2 or 3, 4 euro, whatever, and donate, that will go on the pot to actually set up and look to do another seminar as well. The other good news is that we have received our new monitor. Now, if you remember, our monitor went down a few weeks ago, and we got lend of a monitor off Vin. And thanks, Vin, for that. And that's been sent back now. So, and thanks to the listener who actually donated and helped fund the majority of the actual monitor. Steve's just got up to have a look at that and have a feel.
Yeah, I didn't actually see it. Well, I didn't even take any notice, but yeah, wow, that's nice.
Yeah, lovely monitor. And again, thanks to you and your help and donations. A big thanks to the person, they know who they are, who donated towards the monitor. We do have it in now, and it's brilliant. Otherwise, we would have been stuffed because that was our main computer, and they needed a monitor. It just went down. So a big thank you to that person for doing the majority of the donations towards the monitor. Thank you very much for that. Right, okay, so the seminar went down well. We did take a video of the actual seminar, but due to poor lighting and the audio wasn't great in the room that we were in, and there's a couple of things, so we won't be able to, and due to copyright issues as well, we won't be able to release the actual footage unless we have to do major changes. I don't know. We'll see what we'll do with it anyway. We'll see what happens, and we'll keep you posted on that. We'll let you know. But the other thing I just want to mention as well was, I'm sure you've all seen the video. If you haven't, pop over to YouTube later on and have a look at a TD, an independent TD over here called Clare Daly TD. Fantastic.
Was that too soon? Was it too soon?
No, you're okay. That's fine. We'll work on it. It's all about timing.
Yes, timing.
So, if you haven't seen it, pop over to YouTube and type in Clare Daly TD. Boy, did she give Enda Kenny a roasting. She said everything that we all wanted to say to Enda Kenny, and she didn't pull back any punches. And fair play to her for doing it. And she's got fantastic support from everybody. I haven't seen any negative comments regarding her, except the ones from obviously Enda Kenny.
And the media.
Now, my own personal opinion, not OYM's, but my own personal opinion, is that Enda Kenny and his crowd are a bunch of spineless parasites. But that's my own opinion. Because they are actually supporting America, which is also supporting the rebels, which they're not rebels, they're terrorists. They're like the black and tans coming in over here, in Ireland in the early 1900s. That's what the rebels are like. That's what they're doing. And the Syrian people are trying to defend themselves from these rebels coming in, and America and one or two other countries want to support the rebels and the terrorists. So if you haven't looked into this, I suggest you look into it and find out what's going on, because the general mainstream media or the junk media are trying to, they're supporting the rebels because that's what they're told to do. That's the hymn sheet that they've been given. And Claire, I love the kind of sycophantic, the way they're tripping over each other because Michelle Obama's over here. And of course, they went to, what's the biggest tax exile in Ireland at the moment? Bono.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had lunch in Bono's house, the guy that doesn't pay tax. And then when, what's his name? The Edge had some money stolen from him. The taxpayer paid for the court costs, he didn't pay for them. Yeah, nice to know, like, you're supporting the Irish guys. Good to know, good Irish band there, tax exiles and using taxpayers' money to fund your own court costs. Fantastic. Allegedly. Apparently that was in the media, that was in the papers. So I'm just reading back what I read in the papers. Maybe I'm just assuming.
Well, maybe you are assuming, but no, I think I seen a video as well of Claire Daly, and I have to admit, when I seen the way people kind of send you links, or this was I think last week, it was some posting on Facebook, and sometimes you do see these things and you kind of get the impression, oh wow, someone's after really going for the jugular, but when you watch it, it's so watered down, you kind of go, that was a waste. It was a waste of 5-10 minutes that you'll just never get back. But I have to admit, when I watched the Claire Daly segment, it was powerful stuff. I mean, she didn't hold back, you're right, she didn't pull any punches. She basically put it out and told them what was what. She put the question out there. She did say something about our national or state broadcaster RTE broadcasting the news, as in where Michelle Obama ate for lunch and what she was wearing, because that's news. I mean, that's obviously real important stuff. Not people like losing their houses and being evicted. That's obviously not news. That's not. Well, no, I mean that's kind of, who wants to hear about that? That's ridiculous. No one wants to hear that sort of stuff. We all want to hear what's happening with Michelle and Barack. Coming back to the homeland, the motherland, where he's originally from, blah blah blah, bloody blah. But no, fair play to Claire Daly. She definitely, she done us proud. Now I know there were some people saying, yeah, well, she's still one of them. Although she had a little outburst, she's still on the side of the government. Now, maybe she's changing her tactics, maybe she's changing her tune. I actually do not know. But for that little small segment alone where she had a little outburst, I applaud her. I think she's done the right thing. I think she has bigger cojones than some of the men in the Dáil. Sad to say, when Mr. Kenny got his chance to reply to her questions, he skirted right around the questions and didn't answer them, and he didn't miss the opportunity to kind of throw back a little jab in her corner, saying something smart. Something smart about her, which was totally uncalled for. It was very unprofessional, but he was very professional in the way he avoided answering the question or even touching on the question. So I mean, yeah, fair play to you, Taoiseach. You're a man and a half, really. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's what happened. So fair play to Claire Daly for doing what she did. I'd like to see more independent politicians or politicians going up and saying something. I know it's only words, but at the end of the day, she said what people were thinking, and fair play to her for doing that. Okay, Steve. Yes. Next thing we want to talk about is Aisling Fitzgibbon, a good friend of the show here, of OYM. And doing Trojan work for the removal of fluoride in our public water drinking supply. She has launched a new website. All I can say is I've went to her website. It's very, very eye-catching and very flashy, and it's lovely. It's a pleasure to visit the site. It's very welcoming, and nice girly colours as well. Not that it's just for the girls, but you know what I mean. But it's www.thegirlagainstfluoride.com, and maybe pop along there and just see what she's up to. And there was something else I was going to mention as well.
Carol Rosin?
Yes.
I
was going to mention about Carol Rosin, as we mentioned last week. For anyone who has a few bob and wants to maybe get away, a little break, you can join Carol Rosin at the Contact in the Desert. That's at the Joshua Tree Retreat Centre, the 9th to the 11th of August in 2013. It's a weekend of exploration into ancient aliens, human origins, UFO sightings, and the need to know. You can watch the meteor shower through the clear desert sky, and it's going to be featuring, not the meteor shower won't be featuring, but the event will be featuring George Newry from Coast to Coast AM, also Dr. Stephen Greer. There's going to be a live stream. Also there will be Graham Hancock, Jim Mars, and many, many more. So for more information on that, if you have a few bob, as I say, you want to have a little break, that's contactinthedesert.net.
Brilliant. And how's your week?
My week's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yes, says he.
Yeah.
Can you
elaborate on that?
Yes. Can you? I'm not sleeping.
You're not sleeping?
Yeah, baby's teething, and we've been awake the past couple of nights. And I was just saying to Alan, there was some loud music from a local shindig, some festival that kept us awake. So my nerves are fraught. I think that's the proper thing to say. But there's only a couple of things that I really want to comment on. One is the beautiful weather we've been having. Considering we had about 4 or 5 days good sunshine, about a week or so, week and a half ago.
I was going to say, what country were you in when you got this good weather? I mean,
here.
That was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then we got 1 day.
I still have the memory. The memory lingers on.
We got a photo of the sun.
I did. I took a picture that day. Yeah. But the past couple of days, I mean, I pity the poor people who actually went to that local festival. I don't know who was playing, but I'm sure there's bands I've never heard of. And but it was just torrential rain. The winds were unreal. We had washing out on the washing line, which is probably the best place to put your washing.
Yeah.
And it blew off. The wind was that strong, the washing blew off the washing line, and it's absolutely torrential rain we've been having on and off, mostly on, so I pity the poor people at the festival. I was having a conversation with my darling dearest last night, and we were just talking, the subject of chemtrails, among other things, came up, as they do when you're sitting down on a Saturday evening, with your wife. So we just yapping away about chemtrails, and I don't watch soaps, as well but she did mention to me that she watched a couple of soaps, and in certain scenes there are chemtrails in the sky, and she said, "Isn't that mad?" She says, that they're actually in the soap. That's just a weird coincidence. I said, "No, I don't think so. I think they're there on purpose. They're put there, so therefore when you're watching the soap and you're watching what's going on," I said, "that's just kind of your peripheral vision is picking up on the chemtrails, so therefore you're perceiving it to be normal." And she said, she's noticed it in a couple of soaps, and I think she said there was an advertisement, some advert as well, that it was they were also in it.
Well, somebody just mentioned there about the big one that went over Dublin last week. Yeah, we've seen that one, massive one.
Seen it? I have it on my phone. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And actually, now that you mention it, we were sent a link during the week, and I'm sceptical to say the least. I'll try anything once, except suicide. But we were sent a link during the week, and we did see this information before, but sometimes you see a piece of information and you kind of look at it and go, I'll put that on the back burner, and I'll revisit that at some point in time. But this was in relation to chemtrails and vinegar, that the vapour from vinegar can remove chemtrails.
Yeah, I'm a bit sceptical on that one.
Yeah, I mean, if that was the case, I think we'd all be going around with bottles of vinegar. But I mean, from what the link said, I'm not going to rule it out, because sometimes the simplest things, maybe they do work. I don't know. But they were saying that soak towels, if there's chemtrails, soak towels in vinegar and hang them out on the washing line, and just squirt vinegar all over the place. I'm sorry,
They smell like a chip shop.
Yeah, I mean, that's vinegar on your chips. That's great. That's the only place I'd be putting it. I'm not going to rule it out, and I'm not peeing on that idea. It may well work. I don't know. I haven't tried it, but it's just while we were talking about chemtrails, it just reminded me of the link that we got in during the week. And what?
Need to go with Chembusters. I think be the best bet for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then see if those black helicopters come around.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The last thing that I want to mention is I was blown away, absolutely blown away. There's neighbours of mine, and they've recently moved back to Brazil, and I was watching, kind of disheartened when seeing all the riots and what's going on in Brazil at the moment. But thankfully they're far away from that, so it's not so bad. But there was a video floating about yesterday of a large gathering of protesters. I can't say hundreds, thousands or millions, I don't know, because I don't know how many was there, but there was a very, very large gathering. And there's a lot of police, and they're kind of in amongst the crowd. And they actually just sat down. I don't know if you've seen the video.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
they just sat down in amongst it, and the crowd erupted. For anyone who hasn't seen it, the crowd just erupted in support of the police. And they clapped their hands, and they were just, it was like as if they were all just people together. They weren't protester against policy enforcer or police against non-police. It was just a group of people who were obviously all on the same page, and they sat down. Don't know what happened after that. They probably got the what kicked out of them. I don't know. But then I did see another video of one of these. See, I don't speak the language, but it was a Portuguese news broadcast, and they were saying. Well, they weren't saying, but they were intimating that one of these, more than one of these Brazilian police officers, they were given instructions. I don't know if it was to charge the crowd or what it was to do, but they refused to follow the orders. They refused, and they were getting this guy roaring and shouting at this other guy.
It was to drive the truck to the people, and before he gets there to stop and reverse and keep doing that backward and forward to frighten the people as if they're going to crash into them, and he refused to do it.
Yeah.
Well, look, I put on Facebook, I put up the one that, the police sitting down, and I put up on Facebook, what's the chances of our Gardaí doing that, actually supporting the Irish people rather than the parasites in the government?
I'd like to think there would be a good chance of that, but I think, we've seen time and time again that that's not going to happen, even though, as you mentioned before, that they're getting screwed just as much as the rest of us. They're being shafted as well. But... Okay.
We'll quickly go on because we know we have Lou to get in.
Sorry. Right, how was your week?
Not too bad. Just a couple of things before we bring Lou in. I've been just checking to the fact that, the banks are actually putting up the charges. So I'm, considering the fact of closing down bank accounts and trying to live away from bank accounts. And it seems to be a lot harder than what I thought. I rang up a couple of the people I deal with, like ISPs and AA and stuff like that. And when you ask them, how can I pay you without actually having a bank account, they're just dumbfounded. As if, well, we only deal with bank accounts. We never really thought of people not having a bank account. And I said, well, you want to start thinking about it because people are planning to move away with the banks screwing everybody and wanting more money. So if you have any ideas as to an alternative payment method that doesn't cost money, give us a shout and let me know and we'll talk about it. But my ISP has gone off to speak to the powers to be to see what they can do, and two of the companies that I spoke to said that they've nothing in place to actually cover that. So PayPal being one of them. So the only way PayPal are going to do it if enough people ring up and request an alternative way to make a payment rather than transfer money to a bank account. So if you have time, give PayPal a ring and just say, I'm planning to close down my bank account. Do you have an alternative way that I can transfer my money, i.e. to credit union or something like that? And enough people ring up, then they said they'll actually look into it. So if we could do that. Very quickly, before we bring Lou in, there's a guy over here called Tony Rochford who's starving himself as a protest against the property tax. 8 days on hunger strike tomorrow because he feels that's his last straw. That's really what's going on. So 8 days tomorrow he'll be on hunger strike regarding the property tax. That's what the government is causing, for people over here. And there's, there are a lot more people suffering as well away from that. So give Tony your support. If you see it on Facebook, just give him a like or whatever. Go over there and just give him your support. Leave a message.
Unfortunately, the sad thing is, by his own admission, he reckons he will die and this will not be resolved. He doesn't actually see any light at the end of the tunnel. He reckons, as you say, the government are parasites and they don't actually care. Exactly.
Well, they are parasites, and that's the way it is. Okay, we're going to bring our guest in. Good evening, Lou. How are you doing?
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, listen, sorry for being a little over time for getting things done, but we just had a few things to talk there. Lou, thanks for coming on the show, much appreciated. We know basically that, I mean, a lot of people know that you're part of UK Column, so we won't go into the history of UK Column, but I'm sure there's an awful lot going on in UK Column with Brian and Mike and everybody else that's in there, helping out and getting the messages out there. And you're doing a fantastic job. I tune in every now and again and have a listen to the show and find out what's going on. So, do you want to take it away and just let us know what you're working on, what you're doing, and any news stories that you'd like to tell us about?
Okay, well, it's not just the UK Column I do. My close friend James and I, we have Liberty Tactics as well, and we're broadcasting on MSI. And we've just joined the Pete Santilli network, Guerrilla Media, over in the States. And,
excellent.
You know, he heard our show on the old TNS and liked what we were doing. So we're really, honoured that he's taken us on over there, and we reported over there. We reported on Pete Santilli's show all through the Bilderberg. The column obviously are going to be also hopefully getting on board with the guerrilla media as well, because the stuff we discuss at the column is happening all over the place. And so things are really busy. And then of course I do a little FM show over here down in Devon every Monday morning between 11 and 12. I'm getting handed the Ofcom regulations every week, but I just ignore it and I just keep going until they kick me off air. But, they've put up with me now for over 18 months. And we just keep going. So, that's about it. But the stories we've been working on, obviously we've had the case of Paul and Ashta Roberts, who is the parents of the 1-year-old baby that was snatched from his mother's arms, a day old, by police and social services when they came into the Roberts' home after Ashta had just given birth. And
what was the reason for that, Lou? And what was the reason for that, Lou?
She has learning difficulties.
Because not everybody knows that case.
Right. Paul and Asher, they live up north of the country, and they've already had 3 children taken away. And the reason was emotional harm or something. They've never harmed a baby, but she has learning difficulties. Paul is her carer. So basically the government are saying that she is not capable of bringing up a child. Now, Brian has spoken to them many times, as have I, and Paul was actually in court on Wednesday of last week because he published the story and he'd filmed the stealing of their baby. And he was up in court and he actually got a 6-month suspended sentence because he spoke out and made the case of child stealing public and exposed Stafford Council. So we've been dealing a lot with them, working alongside them. Obviously, we've been at Bilderberg. We were working 12-hour days over the 4 days. I ended up I lost my voice completely because we were live streaming, broadcasting the Sovereign Independent and the UK Column and American Free Press, Mark Anderson, who's just taken over from the late Jim Tucker. So we had a little team and a little tent set up. We made our own free press passes, which was great. And we had a few run-ins with the BBC, and that was really positive. And then the rest of this week I've been mainly dealing with Ben Fellows because his wife contacted us a week before Bilderberg and said could we help her. She hadn't heard from Ben. They'd been threatened outside their home. They had a phone call late one night and a guy standing outside their home, the day of the Woolwich attacks actually it was, and the phone rang and Ben answered, and a voice down the phone said, "Look out your window." So Ben looked out of his window and there was a guy with a ski mask on and told him that if he didn't want to happen to him what happened to the guys in Woolwich, that he would stop what he's doing immediately. So they ran off to a safe house, and by the time they got to the safe house had been having phone calls. And then he got a mysterious phone call from somebody with regards to this Fringe festival. That scared Ben enough because he didn't give his phone number to anybody.
Yeah.
And so they bolted. He left the safe house to go and stay with somebody on a boat. And when his wife tried to contact him a few days later, the guy who had the boat said he'd never turned up. So she got in touch with myself and said, she was worried sick. Could she go on air? So we did an emergency broadcast on Liberty Tactics, and we got her on UK column the following day, putting out a plea for help. I had about 20, 30 emails from mainstream journalists wanting to know more on the story and to get me so I could put them in touch with Julia. And I said I'd pass the messages on to Julia, but I said it saddens me now that it takes Ben going missing, that they're taking his story of being molested as a child actor by senior members of Parliament, as well as being taken into Stringfellows at the age of 15 and being supplied with cocaine, etc., that the mainstream are now only taking notice. It took him to go missing for them to kind of take notice. Anyway, we had no contact with Ben, and we were travelling up to Bilderberg, and we got a message from Julia that she'd gone to the police to report a missing persons. Half an hour after that, she got in touch with me saying he'd sent an email and that he was okay, and he'd sent a photo that he was safe. And then there we were on the first day of Bilderberg, and I see a little figure walking up through the field with a hat on, and it was Ben. He broke down in tears to us and had nowhere to go, didn't know what to do. So we looked after him, and he's been down here in Plymouth with us, and this morning he set off on a 300-mile walk from Plymouth to London in a march against corruption. So myself and James, we live streamed that for Liberty Tactics. We also met up with Brian and Mike at the column. We're down there, and a few other people have made a journey down to support him on his walk to London, which they're looking at about 3 weeks it's going to take him.
Wow. I'd like to get, I think we both like to get Ben on the show to expose what he went through. I mean, people are probably familiar with some of the stuff that Ben has been talking about and has been exposing, and fair play to him, and what goes on. And it'd be great to have Ben on the show to actually go more detail. Now, we just confirmed today, actually, that Bill was on the show before, and we've asked Bill to come back on the show to give us an update on everything. And I know Bill and Ben get on very well, and they were talking to each other, and they're a good team between the two of them.
Yeah, I introduced Bill and Ben. I got them together, and Ben was actually on the show, our Liberty Tactics show on MSI on Friday. Yeah. And he exposed everything. He also exposed how he was being taken as a child actor to audition for Tom Cruise. And there was him and another boy, and the other boy got ushered in the room by Tom Cruise. And all Ben could hear was violence and screaming and shouting for 45 minutes. And apparently the other boy came out of the room crying. And as far as Ben was aware, that the boy had sex with Tom Cruise, and apparently the boy did admit it to Ben in the lift. But he said, but it's okay because my mum's getting a car.
Oh, that's nice.
So Ben exposed all this with us on Friday and you can get that podcast on Liberty Tactics. Bill Maloney, as I say, he's coming on the show tomorrow, my little FM show tomorrow. Yeah, excellent.
And, I mean, Bill is another great soldier exposing what's going on and probably being threatened on a number of occasions. But even on the email, when we were emailing, obviously with the GCHQ issue, that GCHQ are listening to everything and tracking everything, we put little notes in the email to say hello to the guys in GCHQ, and obviously the people that are listening to us now, the NSA and GCHQ. Hello guys, thanks for tuning in to the show, much appreciated. But because if they're listening in, there you go. That's just the way it is. Sure, they missed it. They can get the podcast. To be ready after the show anyway later on. But no, it's brilliant what yourself and Brian and Mike and anybody else. I don't know who else is involved with UK Column, because I think what you're doing is fantastic work and exposing what's going on and getting the information out there. And as you know, it's moral conscience that drives us, because a lot of this is unpaid. Well, most of it is, if not all of it.
We don't get paid a penny, none of us. Not for Liberty Tactics, not for the UK Column. I'm just a single mum struggling. But I was before about 8 years ago. I was living in this little bubble. Didn't have a clue what was going on in the world. Not a clue. I would queue up every year for my flu jab because I'm asthmatic. And I'd get the flu jab, I'd end up in hospital with pleurisy, pneumonia a few times. I used to watch TV every night, EastEnders. I had to have the BMW, and I mean, I look back and I was just vile. And I had an awakening. I watched 9/11 in plain sight, and it started alarm bells ringing, and I was flipping through the TV one day, and I came across Ian Crane giving a presentation, and I watched that, and I just something clicked inside me, and I just got obsessed with it, and I started researching, and I got so angry to begin with that I considered myself an intelligent person, you know?
Yeah.
And why didn't I know this? And I was married at the time, and I turned to my husband and I said, look, do you know about this? Do you know what's... Yeah, I know. I said, don't you feel you need to do something? Don't you want to tell people? You know, people need to know what's going on. You know, and because of that, the marriage broke down, and I became a single mum. And I quit the job that I was in, and I needed to do something about it. And here I am now. You know, I found out Ian Crane lived down the road from me, so I got in contact with Ian and said, you know, I've just kind of woken up to what's going on. I'd love to meet you. So we met and had coffee a few times. And he was just about to rescue Edge Media because it got taken off air. And he said, how would I feel about helping him out and maybe bring in some advertising? So I had anything to help the cause, so that's what I did. So I hooked up with Ian, and at the same time I thought I was going to make some money on my own. I had to support me and the children. And a friend of mine had a little product where it was eco-friendly car cleaning. So I thought, okay, this is genius. So I went on a little business development course, and after the second time on this course, they said, why are you going to break your back cleaning people's cars when you've got this passion for saving the world initially? So she came up with this little business program for me, and it was maybe the first year start with writing a blog, and then eventually try and get onto local radio, and then get up and stand and speak. And I said, well, I couldn't stand up and speak in front of people. I haven't got the guts. There's no way. Anyway, we left it at that. 2 weeks after the course, I got a phone call from somebody else who was on the course doing something a bit different. Said, oh, we've got a friend who's running a local radio station in Totnes, and we've talked about you, and they're really interested. Would you like a slot? So I'm like, wow, I'm really not ready for this, but hey, the universe is giving it to me, so let's give it a go. So I said, yeah, okay, it's all voluntary. So that was it. I started on my little path, and then I met Brian and Mike through an Edge thing, because we were filming an Edge Christmas thing, and they wanted me to talk about the advertising. So I met Ian Puddick, Roger Hayes, and Scott Tips, who does a show here as well, and everybody in the Truth Movement who was up there that day filming this thing for Edge. And I was just me, and I got talking to people and invited them to come on the show, and I invited Brian on, and we worked well together, and here we are now, a few years later, and UK columns over about a year and 3 months we've been running now, and we're getting more and more viewers, and it's great.
Isn't it amazing that, you know, this is not an intelligence thing. It's not about intelligence. You either get it or you don't. And as you said, you know, you woke up to it, you know, and you felt your moral conscience that you had to do something about it. But like all of us, we all got angry as well when we realised the scale of this and what's going on.
Absolutely. I mean, what hit me was the vaccinations. I'd vaccinated my daughter because I didn't know otherwise. I thought it was the right thing to do. I trusted my doctor. I'd queued up for the flu jab every year because of my asthma, and I was told I had to have it. And then an elderly lady fell and she hurt my back, and my GP was prescribing me. They prescribed me morphine for it. They prescribed me dihydrocodone, diazepam, just for a hurt back. You know. And then I was having the flu jab. I was on steroids to control my asthma. And I ballooned at one point. I went up to nearly 14 stone at one point because of this mixture of cocktail of drugs that the pharmacy, you know, my doctor was prescribing me these steroids. And when I woke up, I got every single... And the Prozac, they prescribed me Prozac for the baby blues. You know, this is like 7 years ago. And I woke up and I just got everything out of my cupboard, everything. And binned every single bit of medication, even my asthma medication. I do have a blue inhaler now, just for emergency. Yeah. But I now take no medications. I've never had a vaccine since. I have not been ill since. I've not got the flu. Yeah, a cough and a tickly cough, your seasonal colds.
Yeah.
But I've had no asthma attack. I haven't been hospitalised. Where I was being hospitalised 2-3 times a year with asthma, tubes down my throat.
Wow.
And, and then I lost 7 stone in weight as well. I mean, I went too thin. I went down to like 7 stone. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I started looking after. I started cooking everything organic. I stopped buying the ready meals just for convenience for the kids, which I was doing because I was living, as I say, in this bubble. I ditched the TV. I then realised the main kids programme on the BBC is a programme that glorifies life in a children's home. Mm. And it demonises the parents. It's called Tracey Beaker.
Yeah, that's right.
And what's that doing to kids? It's getting them used to that's okay, that your parents are bad, and it's good in these children's home when we know what goes on in children's home. We only need to turn to somebody like Bill Maloney, who himself and his 7 siblings got seriously abused. Mm. We need to look at, the Operation U Tree over the guest house.
Yeah, exactly.
De La Grande,
yeah.
And
I think my son said the same thing. It's funny you should say that. My son turned around to me last week and he was watching, maybe it was Tracey Beaker or one of these, and he said, God, it looks like it's great fun to be in a care home. And I said, where the hell did that come from? And obviously it must be one of these, programs on TV like Tracey Beaker where all the kids all together and everybody's a happy family. And little do the kids know. And, kids being kids, naively, there might be an argument between parents and they say something and then that's it. Social services are called and, you're a bad parent and then that's all it takes. That's all it takes.
It scares. I mean, what's over here? I mean, you're hearing cases where they're breaking down the family unit. I mean, it's happened to me. My marriage is dissolved. I mean, luckily I've met the love of my life from this, but my marriage broke down. I'm at home with the 2 kids. It's hard for the mums to do 2 roles, to be the mums are there to give the love and support, and the dad's sort of there to instill the discipline and the respect. And it's tough, it's really tough. And then the mums can't cope at home. They go to the doctor. Hey, we're stressed out with the kids. The doctor automatically signs a prescription for, Prozac, etc.
Yeah.
And the second that prescription's written, they are classed as mental health. Mm. And then that is all the social services need in this country to go into the families. I mean, as you know, you've interviewed Brian, and you know that the type of money that councils receive, every child they take away from good homes. And,
we're trying to find out more about it over here because there seems to be no whistleblowers and nobody talking about it. Everything seems to be pretty quiet over here, which is a concern because, some people might say, well, maybe it's not happening over here. I think it pretty much is happening over here. It's just nobody's saying anything,
No, it is happening over there. I know that for a fact because we've been working with a few people over in Ireland, well, Brian has. Some of the kids' cases, because I've got kids, I have to, it's so difficult. I remember when I first met Bill Maloney, he was telling me about the things he was dealing with, and I'm like, wow, how do you shut off every day? And, this is before I met Brian, I met Bill, and, I thought it was an incredibly brave man, how you can switch off and carry on. And then obviously I got involved with the column, and particular case, the Oxford and Cherwell case of the school in Oxford, where kids are being taken out of school, getting drunk with school teachers. There are teachers filming abuse while other students are abusing, the girl students, and we've got, the teachers are filming. There's written statements about some of the things that had happened. And it really affected me. And then Brian showed me some other children's cases that he was working on. And, being a mum and on my own, it hits home. It really does what these women are going through.
Definitely.
So a lot of the children's case, because I have to go back after the day. I have 2 roles. I have mummy first thing in the morning. I go radio show, my researching and getting ready for the show and just trying to wake people up. But then I have to kind of turn off from that at like 4 o'clock, and I have to go back into concentrating on the children. And then they go to bed at night, and then I'll start the next day, researching overnight for the next day's column. But with the kids' cases, it affects me so much, and because, the kids are our future, and they're getting to the children, and this is how these people are getting away with what they're doing because they're going for the children.
Exactly, and
they're getting in the children's heads. I mean, you look at the suicides in Wales, and around the rest of the country, and some of the plays that are going on designed for children, which are just unbelievable. If you go to the UK column, and you can search up, the Wales suicides, and you can get the stories and see some of the videos that are being shown to children as young as 11 and 12.
Well, you have an extra job to do, Lou, and I don't think you probably realise that. Maybe you do. It's something that we have on MSI. There's a very good lady called Vibe who's on after her show actually on MSI, and myself and Vibe were talking off air on Skype. We were having a chat about it, and she was talking about how she woke up and everything else, and how she's trying to wake everybody up. And it's something that we just kind of talked about. And we said, there seems to be a lot more men awake than women. And this is not a sexist comment or anything like that. There just seems to be a lot more men awake than women. And we don't know why. And we said, between myself and Ford, we said, if more women were awake, you'd probably find out more men would wake up as well. It'd be very productive to get more women to wake up, because then the husbands and the boyfriends and everybody else will start hopefully waking up. It's the typical thing. I mean, when you go to a nightclub and you say women in free but men have to pay because the men follow the women, that's just the way it is. But we couldn't understand why there seems to be more men aware and awake than women. Have you come across that?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I mean, women, they kind of, being a mum, it's scary because you're really putting yourself out there. You're leaving yourself wide open. And this is my whole thing. More women need to. I mean, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Just by starting writing a blog. Everyone's done it. They've sat on YouTube sharing videos, and the time's gone for that. It's gone for sharing the videos. People need to start getting up, and women especially need to get up and do something and speak out, because it's hitting us women pretty hard, and and there needs to be more women doing it. I totally agree. And that's when I first met David Icke a year ago. Brian set it up for my birthday because I wanted to interview David Icke, and we interviewed him. It was really good, and he started supporting my show and posting my show up. And he said, "This is what this country needs. It needs a woman. It needs a woman going out there and speaking out from a woman's perspective. Because this country, we've got great speakers. We've got Ian Crane, who I can, I'm proud to say he's supported me, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be doing this. I really wouldn't. He set me off on the path, and he's one of my closest friends, and he's helped me, as has Brian. But yeah, there need to be more women doing it. And anyone can do it. Anyone just get a video camera and just subscribe to Ustream and go out in the streets and just talk to people.
But it's the waking up process, Lou, that we need to get them. We need to wake them up. And I'm sure
we need to hit home we need to get in their faces, but with regards to this could happen to you, with regards to the children, and make them realise and have a look at, just make them realise, all this, making it impossible for couples to stay together, because the husband will go out and he'll get a job, and the women's benefit is immediately cut. So women are far more better off if they're single and they're on their own. They'll get more help.
Yeah.
So it's designed for this. And then the kids, as you say, the kids play up with the mum. And it's designed. It's been designed this way.
Exactly.
And it's going exactly how it should go.
Exactly. Well, we have a few questions for you coming in from our chat room. So, Steve, over to you with the questions.
Yeah. Okay. I have been quiet.
You have been very quiet.
I have, yeah. No, because it's very interesting. I mean, I won't say I enjoy listening to this sort of stuff, but I do enjoy benefiting from it. But yeah, one of our listeners, Lou 26 on our own chat room, a long time listener, he has said that the propaganda takes better on women and more is aimed at them, and I would tend to agree, because between television programs or shows or whatever, when you just watch the ads and the content of the ads, I know a lot of the time between, say, for the breaks between these TV shows, it could be maybe 2, could be 3 minutes, and the majority of the adverts are actually aimed at women. And from my little bit of, I won't call it research, I just call it observation, is that when you do watch these ads, most of them when you kind of look at the psychology of it, it's basically telling the women that, you know, there's something wrong with you and this is what you need to fix that. And every ad seems to be the same. So I mean, I'm not surprised that, you know, that there are maybe more men awake than women. But I mean, I think that as you say, you just switched off the TV. You had your eureka moment, as I'm sure we all did, and you turned off your TV. So I think 2-6 is right. Just want to backtrack a little as well, because you mentioned about TV programs, Tracey Beaker. We mentioned that, I'd say it could be nearly 6 months ago on this program, that we had noticed that a lot of the American TV shows that are kind of directed at the pre-teenagers, that most of the adults in them are portrayed as being blithering idiots, and that if it wasn't for the kids, that the parents wouldn't be able to get up and put their shoes on in the morning. And I think you're right. When you do see when that's getting programmed into your kids, it's only a matter of time, I suppose, before the kids kind of they think that's accurate. That's the way the world is. That the kids are so cool, they know everything, and parents, well, they're just idiots. Their only job is to drive you from A to B.
Yeah, I mean, what you find now is that it's an easy option for parents to shove their kids in front of the TV instead of actually engaging and playing with them and spending time with them.
Yep.
It's far easier to shove them down in front of the telly so they can get on with the other jobs that they do, because, you know, there are so many single parents out there now. And, it goes for men as well. I know there are equally as many single dads out there bringing up their kids and also trying to hold down a full-time job as well so they keep roofs over their heads. But it's far easier for parents just to put the children in front of the telly or in front of an Xbox or, one of these games consoles. And they've got no idea what their kids are watching, because they've got their life and they've got to get on with the things they do. So it's an easy option. I mean, I'm fortunate. My kids, they have. My boy's got a game station thing, but he's never on it. It was a total waste of money. It was bought by his father. There's a TV downstairs, but it's not plumbed into the wall. They can watch the odd films, but they want to be outside. They want to be out walking. I mean, we're lucky where we live. We've got beautiful beaches and everything, and it's for free because, we're struggling. We don't earn any income. We just get on. We've got a roof over our head. We eat good food, and we're outside. The times that, when our time, family time, is we're walking the dogs down the beach. We're spending time outside. My daughter can identify birds just by their song. I mean, she's incredible. She's only 12, and that's what we do. But it's easy because of life and how it is now. It's the easy option to put your child in front of the TV and pop them in front of there, and then these images, and they're getting conditioned to know what adverts there are. And apparently there's even an application you can get on these iPhones. And it's a game designed for kids where you guess the corporation logo.
Yep, saying that.
The children are more, I don't know, it's just a sad world. And, if I can just wake one person up and just get through to one person, say this isn't the way, and get them to spend more time with their kids, kind of educating the kids a little bit. I mean, I have to be careful with what I say and make sure my politics doesn't influence and spill over so the kids end up talking about it at school, because then it'll get picked up. I mean, I don't feel I'm intelligent in it. I'd love to homeschool, but I don't think I'd do my kids any favours, because, I've got no real experience. I used to teach people how to ride horses, and I ran a car rental firm for a little while, and I've never done college. I hated school. So, I mean, they're at school and they're learning and they're bright kids, but they're aware. They understand what chemtrails they are. They understand about the dangers of aspartame and what's going into our food. They understand about the dangers of fluoride. And, just little by little, I mean, I do go through when they come back about history and talk about history, I kind of try and debunk a little bit. And especially now my daughter, she's 12, she's just started secondary school, and she came home a couple of weeks ago and she said, "Mummy, we're doing a drama and we have to present a play on the Victorian times and why we give our baby away." I mean, this is being taught in the schools for kids to put on plays, and why is it acceptable for a mum to give her child away?
Unreal.
I mean,
I think
and this is what the children are being taught in school.
I think you're right. I think we're all in that situation with schools. To be honest with you, we're going into too much detail that there's a certain level of programming. Maybe it's based on ignorance. I don't know, willful ignorance, that you just think that this is the education process that they have to do, and there's no questions from the teachers. It's just this is the way it has to be done. But I'm just getting cautious of time there. I know you have another question for Lou there, Steve. Go ahead.
Yes. Well, it's a double-barrel question. This is just curiosity on my own part, Lou. Because first of all, I want to say in response to what you said just previously, that you definitely sound like the female version of both Alan and I, because we're all on the same page. We all do the same things as regards the Wi-Fi, the aspartame, the fluoride, all that sort of stuff. Alan's his family is educated against it. My family are educated to the point that they go in and they do speak to their peers in class, and they do try and inform them. And my daughter, 12 years of age, same scenario. She'll go in, and if she's picking up a product in a shop, she's known for reading the labels. She will read a label of a product in a shop. If there's any aspartame, glucose, fructose syrup, high fructose corn syrup, aspartame, anything like that, she'll put it back and she won't take it, and I applaud her for that. Some of her friends think she's weird, but she said to me, yeah, Daddy, they kind of think I'm weird, but hey, do you know what, sometimes it's cool to be a freak. And I said, what do you mean by that? She said, well, some of my friends think it's freaky, the way I examine things, and I think differently. But she said, I'm proud, I like to be different, and I'm fair play to her. And I was going to ask you, does your because your children you're teaching them, and they're kind of that educated in that way, do they ever feel that they're missing out on, maybe what the other kids are doing, stuck into TV programs and playing the Xbox? Are they happy, well-adjusted individuals?
They love it. No, they do. My daughter, she comes in and she'll just have a little moan. I mean, she's at that age. She's sort of 12. She's going on 18.
Yep.
And the kids, I feel really silly because everyone's talking about EastEnders, but she just does that for a little moan just to try and get a reaction. But no, they get it. They totally get it. They really do. And I'm lucky. I am really lucky. There was an incident when I first woke up where she pointed out chemtrails. She was younger then. It was quite a few years ago. She was at a primary school, and all the girls started laughing at her. And she came home and she said, "Mummy, everyone started laughing at me because I pointed out the chemtrails." So, and even the teacher as well. And so I marched down with a load of info on chemtrails and got an apology from the school. But I just want to tell you this little story. While she was at primary school, there was a letter came home, and it said, due to the fact our dishwasher's broken, we're going to be having to give the kids use polystyrene plates for the kids' meals. So I'm like, okay, that's a one-off. 4 months later, she comes back home. She comes home, says, "Oh, I dropped gravy all over because of this polystyrene plates. It melted." I said, "Pardon?" I said, "You're still eating hot food off of polystyrene plates. The dishwasher isn't fixed." I thought, right, okay, I'm on a mission here. Got to school and I said, "Look, can you tell me, is this right?" I said, "Do you know the dangers, of this polystyrene when it gets wet, when it gets hot? Do you know what dangers and what chemicals these are having in? And you're subjecting children as young as 4 to these chemicals for like 4 months. Oh, well, we can't get the funding. It's nothing to do with us. We're trying to." I said, "How about washing with I'll come in and I'll wash the dishes." "Oh no, it's health and safety. They have to be in the dishwasher." So anyway, I went home. I found out who was supplying the foods. It was a company. I can say it here. So it was called Eden Foods. So I had a look into Eden Foods. Eden Foods is owned by Rentokil. Rentokil supplies rat poison for businesses and farms and everything else. So I got on the phone to Rentokil, got through to the managing director, and then first of all I spoke to a woman on reception, and she didn't have a clue what I was talking about. And anyway, I got a phone call back from the managing director, assuring me that it wasn't their choice to be giving the children the polystyrene plates. It was ordered by the council because there was dispute on who was going to pay for this dishwasher. And I queried about them being owned by Rentokil. He then invited me to go down to their plant to see where all the food was prepared, etc. Got in touch with the council, and said, oh, if they hadn't sorted the dishwasher out, I was going to take this to the press, that they're subjecting. I listed off the dangers of polystyrene and the chemicals and what it could do to people. And that afternoon, I drive to pick the kids up from school, and I've got the headmaster standing in the school calling me over with his finger. And I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. And he said, I don't know what you've done, but I've been trying for 4 months to get this dishwasher fixed. I've had a phone call this afternoon to say you've been on the phone and we're having a new dishwasher delivered tomorrow. So that was a huge success.
Fair play.
But, these are what, people need to start talking to their kids about what's going on in school, what they're having for lunch. Then check out what ingredients, where they're sourcing the foods from. And then I brought this up, and I said to the school, who owns the company who's providing the school foods for you, Rent-A-Kill. And I don't know what happened after them, because then we moved away and the kids moved school, but I don't know if Eden Foods is still supplying the foods for that area, but
see,
my kids...
You got involved there, and this is what happens when you're a parent and you've got kids. Myself and Steve are no different. We've been working on this as well with the, making sure the Wi-Fi doesn't go into school and doing all that kind of stuff. But listen, Lou, we have 4 minutes left because I know you're tight for time and you have things to do. So we just like to say a big thank you for coming on the show. And we'll have to get you on again a bit longer time, because I'm sure there's loads of stuff that we haven't talked about that we could talk about. But for now, we appreciate you coming on. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. And can I just wish everybody, if everyone could just give Ben Fellows, just support Ben and what he's doing, because he's doing this walk. He's on his own. I know people think he's doing it for publicity, etc. He's not. I know him. We've become very close friends. He's scared. He's been threatened. And he needs our support for exposing the corruption that's going on in this government. And Liberty Tactics live streamed his departure this morning. It's up on Ustream, the Liberty Tactics channel, when he left. And we're going to be checking in every single day with Ben. And as I say, Bill Maloney's on my show tomorrow, and we're going to talk about a bit more about what's going on. So, yeah,
brilliant.
A big support and shout out for Ben Fellows, and well done, mate.
No, that's okay. Well, I was going to pass you over to Steve. Steve normally does the roundup with the website. So Steve, do you want to go through that with Lou?
Okay, Lou, what's your website?
It's libertytactics.com and ukcolumn.org. We've just posted a video up, the interview we did with David Icke before he got up on stage on a very, very hot morning in his hotel room. That video's up on the Liberty Tactics YouTube channel. And I say, libertytactics.com, and we've just started broadcasting on the Pete Santilli network, Guerrilla Media, and we'll be going out after Pete's show on a Thursday. We'll do it live on MSI. We go 5 till 7, and we've got Sam the blogger. I don't know if anyone saw Sam's video prior to the Grove. It was a visit to the Grove where he got escorted off by police, and he had helicopters circling him, and he stood up to the police when they were asking for documentation. He's coming on the show on Friday, live at 5 on MSI. So, yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Well, again, it's great that, more and more people are, hopefully coming on board, becoming hosts of radio shows, or jumping on with a radio show and being a host, and we were trying to get the information out there.
Just get a video. Just get a little video camera, or Ustream, do it on your phones, and then just start showing that. Just get out and talk to people. There's a great group down in Cornwall who are out. They meet every 2 weeks. It's called the Penzance Truth Group. They are out every week. They started off like 3 of them. They're now massive. They do these 2 weeks. They've had Dr. Judy Wood over from America go down and speak. Ian Crane's gone down to speak. Brian. And, just start up a little group. Just maybe start with a few friends, and friends will start bringing other people in, and then you all work together. Go into your local towns. Just focus on one subject, like aspartame, like the fluoride, and just start doing something. The time for reposting YouTube videos is gone. It's really it's gone. Everyone's doing that. It's time now for people to get out and really, really do something. Make a little documentary film and do a little podcast. I mean, it's so easy, and there are free things to do. And
Definitely.
We can make a difference. We really can.
Yeah, definitely the power of the people. I think we have to go out and do that. And well, maybe this Sam, the blogger, will probably come on OYM if we ask him nicely. We'll get a heads up on him. But Lou, thanks again for coming on. Much appreciated. Just stay with us there for a minute. And we'll go to a musical break. We'll be back after this.
Communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Thanks very much there, Mary. That was a little bit of Beastie Boys there, Fight for Your Right to Party. Great information there from Lou Collins. Really enjoyed that.
Brilliant. We'll have to get Lou on again. We have a longer show. It's just that she was tied for time, so unfortunately we only had a little bit of time with Lou, but we will get her on again and get into that information and expand a bit more on it. Now, our next guest is Tony Farrell. We've had Tony on the show before. Tony is ex-intelligence analyst with the South Yorkshire Police. And cut long story short, Tony left the police. We don't really want to go into massive detail with it because Tony has been on the show and he went through the whole history of that. But basically, you can go back to our podcast. If you register, you can have a listen to that show. But Tony is now on a different mission altogether in life. And I met up with Tony with a friend of mine who's an archaeologist. And Tony and Marson had a good chat. And the two of them went to the Hill of Tara to do some investigation, I would say. We call it investigation. But we'll get Tony in and he can explain a bit more about it. Good evening, Tony. How are you?
Good evening, Alan. I'm fine, thanks. And thanks for inviting me on the show. And good evening to all your listeners on Open Your Mind. And good evening, Steve.
Good evening, Tony. Thanks very much for joining us.
Tony, without going into too much detail of what happened with your job, do you just want to kind of give us a 5-minute roundup for people who don't know?
Yes, that'll be fine. I got chucked out of South Yorkshire Police, of all police forces, back in 2010 for a threat assessment that I refused to bear false witness over. And as a result of getting chucked out of the police, I took them through a very interesting Sheffield Tribunal case that then escalated into the Employment Appeal Tribunal in London and then up to the Royal Court of Justice. That's been ongoing for 3 years. I've appealed against all the decisions, and Lady Justice Dame Janet Smith, who's presiding over the Jimmy Savile case, was the one that tried to close my case down in the Royal Court of Justice. So we're appealing that decision, and ultimately I think I'm heading to Strasbourg, the European Court of Human Rights, because they've denied me an oral hearing. And all the way through that court process that's lasted 3 years, they've never really wanted to look at the analysis, and lots of corruption and deceitful practice that has avoided the need for the establishment to look at the dirty deeds behind the 7th of July 2005, which was the false flag attack in London, the London bombing, that is, I'm referring to.
Exactly. But you're on a different mission altogether now, Tony, and as I mentioned that I introduced you to a chap I know who is an archaeologist who is very familiar with the Hill of Tara, and you're doing something called Project Horizon. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, it's entitled a project, the Seven Hills Horizon Project, which starts off next week. And rather than say it in my words, if we can just spend 4 or 5 minutes, because the instigator of all of this is a gentleman that has been highly influential for me, right from the word go where I got the sack, which is the filmmaker Muad'Dib. Now, those that don't know, Muad'Dib was the remarkable filmmaker of the 7/7 Ripple Effect series. That's 7/7 Ripple Effect 1 that blew open the false flag attacks in London, and he did a second follow-up in Ripple Effect 2. He's also done one on the Nazi banksters, and he's got one lined up for the Windsors. So he's a filmmaker amongst many other things, but he's also a historian, and he's got a deep interest in the Hill of Tara. And I've got a special message for him that I'd just like to read out today, in his perhaps opening up with a traditional style, which perhaps sums up what this week is about, and then I'll go into more detail after I've read the message. So here's a message from Muad'Dib. Good evening, listeners of Open Your Mind Radio. I hope this finds you well, in good spirits, and having a good day. The Hill of Tara, the Ark of the Covenant, the Stone of Destiny, the Holy Number 7, the Old Testament prophets Elijah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Malachi, and the Irish Queen, Tia Tephi, the blowing of shofar 7 times at 7 p.m, the Mound of the Hostages, the tribe of Dan, the 10 lost tribes of Israel, and the start of one complete 7-day week. Now all is to be revealed at an epic event at Tara next Sunday evening on the 30th of June 2013, starting at 6 p.m. This event represents the start of 7 days of completeness that will commence at the Mound of the Hostages on the Hill of Tara in County Meath, and will eventually finish outside the gates of Buckingham Palace, immediately following a special visit to Westminster Abbey. Folks, come and visit Tara on Sunday the 30th of June 2013 at 6 p.m. for the start of something of true biblical proportions. Come and listen to a guided tour around the Mound of the Hostages and the Hill of Tara, by the one and only expert who really knows and understands the significance of what lies secretly hidden beneath the Mound of the Hostages. Hear about the historical, biblical and archaeological evidence as to why Jah Muad'Dib knows where the Ark of the Covenant is hidden. Discover and witness the seismic significance of this good news firsthand. Come and see for yourself. Learn about your true Irish history, ancestry and heritage, and reconnect with your roots so that the Irish family tree can flourish again instead of withering as it is now. Come and hear about the research and experience regarding the location of the entrance to the secret tunnel, the secret Mergech, which can be used to locate the Ark of the Covenant. What is kept in the Ark of the Covenant, and why is it so significant? What else is buried underneath the Mound of the Hostages alongside the Ark of the Covenant? And how did it all get there, and why? Why does the Irish Minister of the Environment seek to block exploration? Learn how all this relates to the Stone of Destiny, the Leah Fail, and how it links to Jacob's pillar in Holy Scripture at Bethel and the house of God. Who is this expert, one might ask? Well, it's the one and only expert, it's Jah. Jah is known to many as Muad'Dib, who is the filmmaker of the remarkable Ripple Effect series of documentaries that have exposed the 7/7 false flag attacks in London and the corrupt banking system controlling the enslaving the masses. Outrageously, Muad'Dib spent 157 days in prison during the shambolic hearings about 7/7 presided over by Lady Justice Hallett. Those at the very top of the UK establishment know full well who Muad'Dib really is, and I think they fear him more than any other, and you can find out exactly why they fear him in this talk. Freeman of Ireland, Jah is asking for your help and support. He needs to create a tidal wave of support for the truth about Ireland's great heritage and true destiny to come to light. Don't be denied this divine right. Please, I implore you all, don't miss this golden opportunity to learn the truth about the hidden secrets behind the Ark of the Covenant and Leah Fail and the Stone of Destiny. Witness the start of what promises to be a very special week in Ireland's history at one of its most famous national heritage sites, namely the Hill of Tara and the Mound of the Hostages. It's just the start of a very special week that will see Jah visiting Sheffield, his city of 7 hills in England, often referred to as Steel City. That's Jah's human body's birthplace. Now find out why Sheffield is mentioned in prophetic terms in the Bible. Find out exactly why it relates specifically to Jah himself. Why is Jah returning to Steel City during this special week? The week will end in London on the Sunday, the 7th of July 2013, on the occasion marking the 8th anniversary of the London bombing false flag attacks. And all that Jah exposed in his 7/7 Ripple Effect films 1 and 2. The complete 7-day cycle will be drawn to a dignified close at 7 p.m. on the 7th of the 7th on Sunday evening by Jah paying a special visit to see the palace of the unlawfully enthroned Elizabeth Alexandra Mary Battenberg, otherwise known more commonly as Queen Elizabeth II, that evil head of the New World Order. And that will be outside the palace gates. It is outside these gates that the complete week will be brought to a close with 7 short, intermittent blasts of the shofar. What's the shofar? The shofar is a ram's horn, which was often used in Old Testament times along with a trumpet, as mentioned in the Holy Bible. And you can learn how the shofar and the trumpet was used by Joshua to bring down the walls of Jericho, and by Gideon and a small army of 300 to defeat a vastly superior numbered Midianite army. To the freemen of Ireland, don't miss the start of an historically important week. Jar awaits your company at the Mound of the Hostages. Please arrive in good time for the prompt 6 p.m. start. That's for the guided talk by Jar, Sunday evening, the 30th of June at 6 p.m. It's one epic story, one awesome storyteller, one unmissable hour, and 1 week of completeness. That's the Hill of Tara, the Ark of the Covenant, the Stone of Destiny, the Holy Number 7, the Old Testament prophets Jeremiah, Queen Teotefi, the blowing of the shofar 7 times at 7 o'clock in the evening, the Mound of the Hostages, the start of 1 day of a completeness of 7. This is Tony Farrell. I'm the former principal analyst of South Yorkshire Police, speaking on behalf of Jar. So until then, from Jar, it's ta-ta from Tara. Good wishes to all listeners of Open Your Mind Radio, and special thanks to Alan James and Stephen George for the airtime and the publicity for this once-in-a-lifetime event. And I just want to draw everybody's attention to the website on Open Your Mind, because on the events section there, you can download the 14-page brochure about all that 7-day event that takes place, starting Tara, in the middle bits in Sheffield, and it culminates in London, outside the gates of Buckingham Palace, for a complete 7 days. So, with your friend Martin, I was up there exploring and having a look at the Hill of Tara and all the associated interests that Yar is going to reveal in the talk next week.
Okay.
A truly fascinating story.
Well, just to kind of catch up on this, your research has said, according to your research, that the Ark of the Covenant is buried in the Hill of Tara. This is what your research has said, yeah?
Well, this is what Jar's extended research has told him. Okay.
Because, no, it's just amazing how many people have different opinions on that. Like, even this morning I was watching Showcase TV and Richard D. Hall was on, and he had the two historians, one of them's called Baron something or other, and these two historians, they've loads of books out, and they're convinced that the Ark of the Covenant is buried somewhere, I think, in Wales.
Alright, do we know who those people are?
Well, I forget. I think they're called Baron Historic Historians. I'll find out for you, Tony.
Yeah.
And I'll send you an email over. I'll definitely find out. But Richard D. Hall, apparently they have about 11 books out, all about the history of King Arthur and everything else. And they've done massive research. And they reckon there's a mound somewhere. I think it's in Wales. And they're saying that's where the Ark of the Covenant is. But the farmers won't allow them. The farmers won't allow them to dig it up to find out what's there. So, okay. But what I can do is I'll find out the information for you. And I was just about to read that out there, Steve.
No, that was a joke. Don't read it out.
Yeah, no, yeah. But no, I'll find out the information for you and these two lads, because they've been on the show, Richard D. Hall, a few times, and even at one time I think somebody tried to kill them by arson. They had some guy staying over in the house, and he put an incendiary device underneath the bed or something, one of the beds, and the whole room was actually burnt. And so they reckon that was a plant.
Oh, interesting.
So these guys are getting near to the information as well, and obviously they don't want them to. But we will track down.
The Ark can't be in two places at once.
No. Well, again, it goes back to what we said before, Tony, about, some people, like we had Chris Thomas on, and Chris Thomas said that he doesn't think the Ark is actually in Ireland. And everybody seems to have their kind of own opinion as to where it is. So it's kind of, finger in the air time, I think, with the Ark. And obviously, you've done your research and John has done his. And so, I don't know, it's just trying to get access to the property, access to the land, to do a scan, to check to see what's there, really. I think that's going to prove, for sure where it is.
Well, Jar's story is, in terms of his research and his journey, he's been trying way before 2001, when he was trying to apply to the environmental minister for application to excavate what was a very small location that he'd located from the clues. And this all came from initially a research by Edmund Raymond Catt. It's all embedded, within Scripture. And Jeremiah, who took the Stone of Destiny along with Queen Teotepha, brought it to Ireland at the same time as the Ark of the Covenant. Now, basically, Jar has located what we call the secret Mergek, which is a passage, a tunnel that is no more than, say, 2 metres by 2 metres in terms of its opening. And when he actually acquired all the clues that would lead into that destination, when he arrived at that very spot that he knew would be the opening to the secret hidden tunnel, the Mergek, he located what was a diamond on the grass. From that point onwards, he was convinced that this was, the tunnel that would lead underneath the mound of the hostages, buried underneath, not buried in the mound, but underneath the mound, where the Ark of the Covenant would be located. So he'd certainly discovered the entrance of what was the Mergek, which in Hebrew means the temporary resting place for treasure. He'd got the historical clues, and he concluded that it was underneath the mound of hostages. Now the problem was that it's a protected heritage site, and they wouldn't allow anything to be, even to touch a blade of grass, basically. But this diamond shape of the 2 by 2 was all he wanted on a flat grass on the hill, and that was his mission, to recover the Ark, which would, in his terms, would be the greatest thing that could happen on the planet. But the government's reluctance to even let him excavate a small hole like that, off a minute area of flat grass that wouldn't harm anything, became, in essence, a struggle with the authorities in Ireland and the Irish minister. Now, the local, there have been excavations before around the Hill of Tara looking for the Ark. In the 1950s, there was an excavation, and it was a guy called Sean O'Regan, and that was halted after 2 years. He died halfway through, in some say mysterious circumstances, and then a Rory de la Villiers took over, and there were sort of lots of dating of carbon-14, and it was sort of classed as this mound as the Stone Age, but we've subsequently discredited that, and the method of dating used by the archaeologists was through the carbon-14 method, which, in a way, because of the fact that we're in the Emerald Isles in Ireland, we get an awful lot of rain. Then the rain had corroded and corrupted those and made unreliable the carbon-14 readings. But the archaeologists have made an awful lot of money as a profession out of writing about this, but they are in error. And the problem is that the uncle of de Villiers, the archaeologist in the 1950s, was Sheila de Villiers, who became the minister. She was the one that was blocking it as the minister later on, and Jar's application to get a minor excavation in order to discover the secret Mergek, which would lead underneath the Ark of the underneath the mound of the hostages into the Ark of the Covenant. Well,
I can give you some information on that, Tony. If you go over after the show, obviously you can go up to richplanet.net.
Yeah.
The two guys are called Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett, and they have a book called The Discovery of the Ark of the Covenant by Grant Berkeley, and it's on their website. It's on Richard D. Hall's website for sale. And they're saying that Britain always had stories about the quest for the Holy Grail, and as the Ten Commandments are nothing more than a record or grail, it becomes obvious the Ark of the Covenant was meant. The authors Alan Wilson and Baron Beckett clearly show where the Ark is now buried, but have faced huge opposition to have this site professionally excavated. Now, there is a TV interview with Wilson and Beckett about this, or Wilson and Blackett about this. So if you go over to richplanet.net later and you type in Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett, A Discovery of the Ark of the Covenant, they have a book there. So I'd be curious for yourself or John to go and read the book and see if you agree with what they say, or whether you have more information than they do about where you reckon the Ark is.
Well, yeah, I'll certainly have a look at that. Jar is far more qualified because he's been spending the last decade in Ireland specifically.
Yeah.
And he's not going to go away from this area in order to actually expose and uncover the Ark. That's his mission.
Yeah.
So he will be absolutely 100% convinced that the Ark is under the mound of the hostages. So whether he chooses to look at that research or not, I as a former intelligence analyst will be intrigued to see what it says, but I very much doubt whether I'll be persuaded, because I have been persuaded by the historical records, by the Bible prophecies, and by its relationship, the close relationship with the Stone of Destiny.
Yeah. No, it's just curious. I mean, if they're saying it's buried somewhere else, it's always good to have a look at what other people are saying, and then you can kind of look at their information and you could say, yeah, okay, they forgot about X, Y, and Z. And then, I don't know, I think it'd be quite interesting. Not that it's, I'm going to rock the boat in any way, as to say that it's not in Tara, but it's good to see what they say, and then you can compare notes to the research that you've done. And, so if anything, it'd be interesting for, like yourself, as you say, you're an intelligence analyst, so you look at all the information and analyse it and see what they say,
Well, I find it quite fascinating too, because obviously Richard Hall was the person that gave me my first big break when I got kicked out of the organisation, South Yorkshire Police, and he was the first person to have me on his show, and from that show it went quite viral. So and he went over to America on the Alex Jones show before I knew it. So I do know Richard quite well. I've been on his show twice and I've met him a few other times. So I'll be interested to. I don't know how persuaded Richard is on that one, but it'll be interesting to compare notes.
I think it would be. I mean, he obviously got on well with Richard, because on the Rich Planet website it has the Tony Farrell campaign link.
Oh, I've got immense respect for Richard. He was so kind to me in giving me the interviews, but more than that, when I lost my unfair dismissal in Sheffield in September 2011 it was, the unfair dismissal hearing, I was virtually bankrupt and the courts were coming at me for costs, and Richard, together with Ian R. Crane, got their heads together, but represented me as a Mackenzie friend in the hearing, and had a rescue plan for me in order to keep my case going. And it's still going today. I've still got work to do to keep fighting. So, but on this level, we're talking about a completely different level altogether here. Linking up with Richard for these competing arguments as to where the Ark of the Covenant is indeed located is a massive issue.
Yeah.
It could get much bigger. Because if we do locate the Ark, and I believe we ultimately will, at more or less the same time as the Stone of Destiny will be found, and that's another story in itself that I'd like to explore today briefly, because they do go hand in hand. Then I think we're into obviously end times in Bible prophecy, but it couldn't get more significant, and the implications for Ireland are immense and truly awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we have a few questions come in there, Tony, so I'll pass you over to Steve, and Steve will go through them with you.
Okay, Tony, I'll ask these in the order that they came in. Chris wants to know, has Tony ever heard of Andrew Power and his work?
No.
No? Okay. I don't know of Andrew Power either. Chris, maybe if you want to expand on that one. And Andrew was wondering, please ask Tony who did 7-7 really? Or who really did 7-7?
who did 7/7? In terms of who exploded who detonated the trains and blew up the number 30 bus?
That's my understanding of the question, yeah.
The question, I don't know who pulled who pressed the buttons. What I do know, and what I will say on 7/7, is that I am utterly convinced it wasn't 4 suicidal maniacs who were Muslims who blew themselves to smithereens on 3 underground trains and the number 30 bus. I believe they were set up with patsies. I believe 1 or 2 of them were at least taken out at Canary Wharf. I believe there's been a massive cover-up, and that went into Lady Justice Hallett's inquiry, where we had a sham of a hearing that focused on the failures of the intelligence services. We've never had a proper lawful court hearing where we've established guilt by a jury. The families of the 4 innocent patsies and have been denied legal aid, and the whole thing has been a massive cover-up. So in terms of who really was involved, I think it's a complex issue. I think the British government, in terms of Tony Blair, knew about that, and may well have been instrumental in giving an instruction to make something like this happen in order to justify the aggressive foreign policy agenda in the Middle East and our imperialistic designs there, in order to create a Hegelian dialectic with the Muslim community and create a climate of fear in order to further justify the war on terror that was happening. I think there was media involvement and complicity. There was police involvement and complicity in the form of the Metropolitan Police. I would even name my own police force, former police force, that is, South Yorkshire Police, involved in that complicity. And why do I say that? The Chief Constable of South Yorkshire Police, he was up at Gleneagles on the day looking after the G8 summit with Tony Blair and George W. Bush present. There was a bomb hoax up there. There was a bomb hoax in Sheffield on the 5th. There was a 5th of July, that was my first day back at work after a secondment in Leeds. On the 11th of July, there was another bomb hoax in Sheffield. My boss at the time, when I made the stance 5 years later, when I woke up to 7/7, he inadvertently opened up and said I was there on the terror drill on the day. I said, "You beg your pardon?" He said, "I was there on the terror drill on the day." Now, what terror drill does he mean? Because the only terror drill that we know about is Peter Power's terror drill, which was occurring at the exact same locations as actually this terror drill exercise that was running. Initially, what he mentioned, 1,000 staff, morphed into the real thing at more or less the exact same stations on the underground. Now, the probability of that happening just by mere coincidence is phenomenally low. So there was some connection there. But then later, the latest utterance from Peter Power, who's got a record of himself that needs to be looked at, was that this was only a small back office group of his own staff. So his changing story over time makes him a big suspect. And that if you bring my DCI in, DCI Steve Williams, and this is covered by Muad'Dib's film Ripple Effect 2, he blurted it out to me that he was on the same terror drill. Well, he was not a member of staff of Peter Power's back office. He was a DCI in a Force Intelligence Bureau of one police force, with a message to bring back that he heard it all come over the airwaves that would reinforce this delusion that it was 4 Muslims that really did do it. But I am utterly convinced, and there's more than enough research out there. I would advocate anybody to read Nick Collisram's book, 7/7, Terror on the Tube, Beneath the Veil of 7/7, as an excellent starting point. But there are so many websites that blow it all open as a false flag operation. Mossad were involved. I think media involvement. I think there were people that knew it was going to happen. But it all operates under a secret network. And it all has to have various players involved. And I certainly no doubt whatsoever that media involvement occurred. You look at the Panorama programme in 2004, where they were planning this clearly. It morphed into the real thing there and then, and you look at the people that were on that, Gavin Hesler, Michael Portillo, and they were saying how they would have to control the media, and don't underestimate the links of the media and who controls the media. And we can link up to Scottish Media Group, we can link up with the BBC, but exactly who pressed the button, I don't know. But I do believe MI5 knew what they were doing. I do believe that Mossad were involved, and I do believe that the media were involved too. What I am convinced of is that it wasn't 4 Muslims that did it.
That's fair enough. Sorry, Sid.
Yeah, no, I think we can all agree on that. But isn't it just strange, Tony, when you see the way there was a terror drill going on, and then, as you say, it morphed into the real thing, and that has happened so many times since 7/7. When you look at what's been shown on TV, they say the Sandy Hook shooting, the Boston bomb, and there was kind of all things going on at the same time too, and then they just miraculously morphed into the real thing, and yet a large portion of society just accepts that as, oh well, that's just the way it is, and they don't actually see a connection. They can't actually join the dots and see that there's something else going on here. It beggars belief.
I think it's fear as well.
Yeah.
That people don't want to face up to the implications of uncovering this and exposing it. But there's one interesting one that I want to refer to, and I think it links back to a guest you had on your programme about a month or two ago. That's Miss Charles Seven, which she gave details of an incredible episode of gang stalking that she an ordeal through the courts. And I've actually been involved with writing that joint report that exposes all the court corruption. Now, what I want to refer to specifically in her case, because she did go to the police just prior to 7/7 in June 2005, and was screaming from the rooftops saying, the criminals that have stolen my work from me are about to do something dreadful on the underground. She had coded messages given to her, and this is sometimes how this crime cartel operate. They almost have to advertise hidden in plain sight. Now, I reject the notion that 7/7 was committed to cover up Seven's case, but I do believe Miss Seven and her story is an example of the kind of exquisite torment that these criminals at the high levels can put people through. And I want to refer to a guy called Jim Manson, who was linked in the media profession to Scottish Media Group, who was one of the guys that was originally meeting Miss Seven when she had her intellectual property, and she was trying to protect it through copyright. Now, all that got stolen from her, and a person that was instrumental there was none other than Jim Manson, together with Scottish Media Group, Helen Murray Alexandra. Now, what subsequently happened afterwards, the court corruption was phenomenal. The efforts of Miss Seven were phenomenal in terms of, as a litigant in person, going through all sorts of court skullduggery. She got into a substantive hearing in 2006, and she more or less won her case in front of Judge Pumphrey. Then later the judge died in mysterious circumstances, having been promoted and knighted, and then died. And then we got to a stage, but this Jim Manson comes back in the scene. This guy that was one of the defendants, and the defendants had really no defence, that had stolen all her work and profited with all these programmes that were made. He is a key witness at none other than the Glasgow airport bomb attacks. Now, they happened, I believe, on the 30th of June 2007. And guess who was the first witness on the scene? It was Jim Manson. Now, so he's there. You can see him on YouTube. You can see viewers, just Google Jim Manson on the YouTube channel, Glasgow airport attack, the 30th of June, and see what you think. And then go onto Wikipedia and see what was happening that day. And this is how it works, because what was happening on Scottish TV and on ITV, showing on that very day in the afternoon of the Glasgow airport bomb attacks, were the films Die Hard 2. Now, they subsequently got cancelled, later on that day. But Die Hard 2 was a film. I don't like Bruce Willis, so I've never really bothered to watch it other than read about the film. But it's all about a terrorist airport attack. And they pulled those films down. They had to under pressure. But you can see all the synchronicity here of how they work. They almost want to perversely advertise what they are doing in front of the public, knowing full well that most of the public are actually completely clueless. But they do like to leave their clues. It's almost like an exquisite torment and a game of cat and mouse, catch as if you can. We'll give you clues, but while you're looking for this clue, we're on to the next big thing and the next big false flag. So by the time you've fathomed this out, we've gone and done 2 or 3 other terrorist attacks. And meanwhile, 99.9% of the population are fast asleep.
Exactly. Tony, we have a few questions for you, so we need to do a kind of quick hit on the questions, because we're going to be running out of time, but Steve's going to go through them with you there. Okay.
Yeah. Chris says, Tony, this is in relation to the gentleman Andrew Power, who we spoke of previously, whose work you weren't familiar with. Chris said, Andrew Power wrote a brilliant book, Ireland, Land of the Pharaohs. It covers a lot of the material Tony was discussing about Ireland, and maybe it might be worth checking out. I suppose that's not really a question, it's more of a comment. We have another question from Andrew, and Andrew wants to know, there's a couple of questions from Andrew. I'll also give them in order that they were received. What type of Stasi or Stasi style tactics do UK Popo use?
Sorry, the UK? Say that again.
What type of Stasi style tactics do UK POPO use? He said that it's kind of be the equivalent of the feds.
I don't follow the question, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, we move on, because I don't really understand it either. I don't know who the Popo are, unless it's a code. Where are we? What is Crown Copyright is one, Tony. What's your take on the gas that was to be released on the underground? I'm guessing that's on. He has a link there for the BBC, so I'm guessing that's in relation to the 7/7, the gas that was to be released. What's your take on that?
I don't know about that.
Okay. We're doing well.
Okay, that's okay. We're doing well. Very
okay.
Good. Okay.
Please ask Tony, how much involvement do police have in gang stalking psyops, and why is this torture perpetrated on civilians in the population?
Well, since I've been out, I've experienced a lot of court corruption in areas like, to do with the secret family courts, child snatching, covering up of child abuse. I think you've got the classic example is the Seven case, which I've been involved with. That Seven actually tried to get help from the police, the Metropolitan Police, and it's all well documented this in the report. And there's up to 65 occasions that Seven went for help to the police, asking and pleading for help. And this ranged from things like reporting the intellectual property theft and giving the evidence, to reporting burglaries, to reporting attempts on a life, to reporting threats and general stalking issues. Now, not once has a crime properly been investigated by the Metropolitan Police on Miss Seven's case. Now, a lot of that happened before I came on board, because I only met Seven on the 1st of July 2012. But when I engaged with her on her case, and I spent some time at her vacant flat working on the report, where she'd come and see me once a day just to give me the files that I needed in order to get the job done. But I was under surveillance, and this was an incredible story, because immediately opposite her flat in Westbourne Crescent, which is close to Paddington, the hotel opposite on the same floor, I noticed one morning when I opened up the blinds in the kitchen where my computer was, there was a flurry and frenzy of activity by operatives who were blatantly, overtly filming everything I was doing and were advertising the fact that they were listening to everything that was happening inside that flat. And they were so blatant then at overtly following me, and I think that may have been in an effort to drive me away. What subsequently happened, I wasn't deterred by it, because I used my own faith, and when they put the antennae and the radio out, I just read back Psalm 2 to them, and I put a mirror in the window, reflecting back to them what they were trying to observe. So I wasn't deterred. But what subsequently happened, when I blurted the report out on the UK column, shot about 2 weeks after that, the whole of that floor where that operation had been enacted against, zooming in on Miss Seven's flat, where she'd had umpteen occasions when she'd reported to the police that had been followed and been computer hacked. There were all sorts of these things, and the police would never investigate. In that situation, the floor got burnt to the ground on that operative floor, where about 7 or 8 windows were all zooming in on our kitchen. Now, it also happened the same day that adverts went out all over London on the YouTube, burned the floor, which was an advert for Strictly Come Dancing. Strictly Come Dancing was one of the concepts that Miss Seven, back in 2003-4, was trying to protect copyright, because she'd come up with a multitude of ideas, one of which was Strictly Come Dancing, not to be confused with Come Dancing that went before. This was a new idea, it hadn't been tried, this was a new concept, and that she was being ganged on. Now, I, a number of occasions, accompanied Miss Seven to the police station. I was present at Miss Seven's flat when police officers came round, and the service that we received was utterly deplorable. I have no hesitation in condemning the Metropolitan Police, and particularly officers at Paddington Green, for their abject failure to properly investigate a person who was being a chronic victim and a victim of terrible gang stalking. And it's shameful and a disgrace, and I'm ashamed of the police service that's allowed to happen. Well, and I go back to, these things do happen. You look at South Yorkshire and the 24-year cover-up of Hillsborough. Well, I'm not convinced the truth come out on that one.
Well, we hope that changes in time. Tony, we've reached that time in the evening that we have to finish up on, unfortunately, because we have a few things that we have to go on and talk about. But thanks again for coming on and obviously promoting the Project Horizon. If people want to get that, they can go to the events page. But I'll pass you over to Steve, and Steve will go through your bits and pieces for you.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you.
Okay, Tony, just before I do that, if I don't read this out, I will be shot, because someone obviously spent quite some time doing it. This is in relation to the link that I say. If anyone sends in links, I generally don't click on them until after the show, because if I do, it could cause all sorts of problems here with audio. But in relation to the gases being released on the underground, Crown Copyright says, this is seen in print on BBC, tests are set to be carried out on the London Underground to see how quickly poisonous gases could spread across the tube network. The aim is to create a better understanding of how to respond in the event of them being deliberately or accidentally released. The trials will be carried out over several days this month using non-hazardous materials. The gas will be released between the morning and evening peak times. Transport for London said the gas would be released near the opening of the tunnels, and that people should not be able to see, smell or taste it. 11 stations will be... there's obviously a break there. Nigel Holness, Operations Director of London Underground, said a similar trial was carried out at St John's Wood Station in 2007. He said tests were being carried out by the Department of Transport, and it just gives a list of stations there across the country where these tests were to be carried out. But seemingly, that obviously was in the media. It was on the BBC anyway, so they were going to be testing some non-hazardous gases. I wonder.
It's the development. It's a very sinister development, I think. When we look back at the track record, there were lots of operations that we can, with the benefit of hindsight, look back before 7/7 happened. The police were actually, creating the conditions and simulated what was going to happen, and then pulled it off themselves. And so you don't know whether this is like a dummy run for something that they're going to enact out themselves at some later stage, or whether now they are aware that people are more alert and they're just doing this to create a climate of fear. But I think the establishment, in a way, have got the backs to the wall. I think people are waking up, and we are exposing the corruption, and therefore this controlling elite who want to enslave the masses are probably getting more and more cornered and feel as though they've got to generate extra fear now and create other false flag attacks more frequently in order to keep the public in fear and getting the public to cry out for more safety measures.
I totally agree.
I think it's Tony that I think they're getting desperate now. I think a lot of us, they're trying to escalate what they need to do quicker, because people are waking up en masse globally. As you know, I'm just watching the news, you can see it happening, and they're trying to put in as much as they can and speeding things up, because they know if they don't get it in, then it'd be too late for them. And I think this is all part and parcel of the psyops.
Well, it is, and I just want to bring it back to what is the solution to all this? And I think one of the things that's gone wrong, we've got all this legislation in, all these, gun control measures, all that's gone out throughout the world. And what we have done, I think, is turned away from the simplicity of God's law. And if we all kept the Ten Commandments, which are stored in the Ark of the Covenant, that would be the perfect world. Because if everybody adhered to that simple rule of the Ten Commandments, the world would be a far superior place than it is, and we wouldn't be stealing resources from our neighbours over in the Middle East, and we wouldn't be letting people starve while we've got filthy, rich, obscene institutions like the monarchy and the Vatican, that their resources could feed the world 2 or 3 times over, and yet we let people go starving. And there's that kind of agenda where people are left and being enslaved.
Definitely.
Totally wrong.
Definitely, I definitely think it is. But hopefully, the balance will turn, and I think it is. I think people are beginning to wake up en masse big time. But Tony, thanks for being with us. It's much appreciated you coming on the show, and I'm sure we'll catch up with you sometime. We'll have another coffee sometime. But for the time being, thanks for coming on, and just stay with us there for a minute, Tony. We'll go off to a musical break. We'll be back after this.
Thanks, Alan.
That's the short version. Player, Baby Come Back. Brilliant song. Both of us just bopping away here.
Yeah, we like
slowly.
that.
It's a slow bop.
That was a good choice of song. I like that. That is a good song.
And no, I never had a mullet. Alan said he did.
I did. I was.
What's a mullet? Was that one of silly haircuts where I was going to shorten the front and long at the back?
Paul Young hairstyle, kind of, big, kind of semi-perm type of thing. Ooh. Like Bon Jovi, 80s, 1986. Yeah.
That's Europe.
I had, Europe. Yeah, Europe.
You say Bon Jovi, and I'm thinking of Europe, the final countdown.
You get the idea.
No, never had a mullet.
Yeah, I did. I actually have a photo, but it's well buried. It's actually buried it's more secure than the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, I'd well believe it. Yeah, I tell you, if I had enough hair now, I'd have a mullet now if I had the hair.
Yeah, just to be different. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, that was brilliant. We had 2 great guests on, Luke Collins from UK Column and Tony Farrell. And obviously, I'd like to think that if the Ark of the Covenant is on the Hill of Tara or buried somewhere, that we find it. I think that'd be fantastic. But there's so many people, conflicting with that argument and saying that it's actually in other places and not in the Hill of Tara. So, you have to look at all the information and suss it up yourself, really.
Personally speaking, do you remember a couple of years ago when they were building the motorway, the M3 motorway? And there was all sorts of, there was uproar that was going to interfere with the Hill of Tara.
That's right.
Well, having travelled the motorway, it wouldn't be, well, there are parts of it where it's not the straightest thing in the world. And if the Ark was on Tara or near Tara, there's obviously people out there who have technology, even satellite technology, where they can look deep into the ground and find things that might be there. And, my spider senses are telling me that maybe when they were doing the excavation for this motorway, that they probably knew exactly where to go. And maybe if this Ark was in a particular location, wouldn't it be just convenient to just run the motorway through there, excavate it, just find the Ark, take it away, and continue on the motorway, and no one would ever be any the wiser?
Well, there was a group apparently called the British Israelites who did come over here years ago to try to find it, and they never found it. So, I don't know. I hope best of luck with Tony and the search, and we'll get Tony back on and find out, get an update from Tony as to what's going on. Going back to the current century and the current year, we'd just like to say again to people, thanks for coming to the seminar last week. And we do have the ads on the actual OYMradio.com website now. So, if you don't mind donating, or you're strapped for cash, if there's an ad that you fancy, click on the ad, and obviously we get a few cents for that. That would be fantastic.
Even if you don't fancy the ad, click it anyway.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Stick it to the man.
It'd be a big help for us as well.
Yeah.
Now, if you have come across any information about, moving away from the banks and just paying bills without having to use a bank account, it seems to be very difficult, obviously designed that way. So if anybody comes across any ideas, give us a shout, send us an email in, let us know. And next week we have Detective Constable retired Gary Heseltine. Now Gary runs the Trufo website, which is the UFO website over in the UK for the police. And Gary was away on the Citizens Disclosure over in Washington there in May. And Gary's coming on the show to tell us all about it, how it went, and what the plan of attack is now to expose what's going on. And if you haven't seen this, guys, I recommend you go over and see it, because you're talking about 40 or 50 experts in their field. The ex-Canadian Defence Minister was talking about what he's seen and what he knows. And obviously Stanton Friedman was there, Gary was there, Nick Pope was there, but we won't say much about Nick. And there's a few other people that we know were there. But military people, pilots, experts, all giving the information, what they've seen, what they heard, and what they have experienced. Now, there has to be something. That just has to be something. Well, all them people coming out and saying it. So, it's going to be interesting. Put that way, it's going to be interesting. But that's really what's planned for next week. You got them planned during the week, Steve?
I'm going to be going up to, we're just looking at some of the posts there on the MSI chat room, and Donegal, hi Donegal! Donegal has the Ark of the Covenant in his shed, so I'll probably take a trip up there and maybe get a picture of me holding the Ark. Then again, what is it like, what is the Ark? Is it like Noah's Ark?
Well, here's the thing.
Is it a cup or a chalice?
Well, here's the thing. People have different ideas. Some people think it's the cup that had the blood of Jesus in it. Other people think it's the bloodline, because Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene and had 2 or 3 kids. Other people think it's a crystal, which is what Chris said on the show last week, with 4,000 years of memory like a hard disk. Other people think, like Tony, think it's more commandments. 2 of the commandments that we don't have, that we should have been given, was every 7 years all debt is forgiven. All debt is forgiven.
I like the sound of that one. Yeah.
And every 50 years there's a reset button for various things. And they're the other commandments which we weren't given, because obviously if all debt was forgiven, the money changers that were in the temple when Jesus overturned their table would never make any money. So that was obviously never given to us. So, and the other side of the Ark of the Covenant is that if you go near it and you don't know how to actually open it up or check it out, you could be killed. Now, that's very Indiana Jones, I have to say. But you don't know. This is what apparently has been said. So, very interesting as to what the Ark of the Covenant is, and whether it's buried in Tara or whether it's buried by, in the UK somewhere. We don't know.
We just told it's in Donegal, in his shed.
It's in a shed.
That's what he said.
It's in a shed in Donegal. Okay.
Donegal, send us a picture, will you?
Yeah. And just again, just a reminder that Tony Rochford is on hunger strike 8 days tomorrow regarding property tax, and he just feels he's been forced to do that because of the government. So just keep an eye out for Tony. Check out Claire Daly's Claire Daly TD. Check out. I know she's a TD. I know she's been paid by the Crown, but she's not going to get paid by anybody else, and that's just the way it works. You're going to get paid by the Crown because you work in the Dáil. Doesn't mean she agrees with it, but I'm sure she has a mortgage and bills to pay as well. But fair play to what she said. I have to admire her for what she said. Fair play to her. And during the week, well, again, more of the same, just catching up, listening to the news, finding out what's going on. Russia Today, very good. Al Jazeera, very good. Catching up on the news. But for myself, Alan James, have a good night, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, and just I'm going to just give the last comment to Sven of the MSI. He said the 7-year and 50-year debt forgiveness are part of the law in the first 5 books of the Bible. I did not know that, was not aware of that. So I've learned something as well tonight. Okay, catch you all again next week. Stay tuned. The goodness will continue and the loving awareness will continue on MSI. So for myself, Stephen George, we'll catch you again next week. Bye-bye.
open your mind.